For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. Thousands of Palestinians are fleeing from Gaza City's main hospital after strikes that staff blame on Israel hit in and around several hospitals overnight. They joined a growing exodus of people fleeing towards the south after Israel said it would open an additional route from northern Gaza and agreed to a 4-hour humanitarian pause in fighting so people could flee beginning today. United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk today said forcing patients to flee hospitals is a death sentence.
Some hospitals, including Al-Quds and Al-Shifa hospitals, have also received specific evacuation orders, in addition to the general evacuation orders to all of northern residents of Gaza. But such evacuation, as the World Health Organization has warned, is a death sentence.
Gaza officials said the total Palestinian death toll has now surpassed 11,000. Meanwhile, CIA Director William Burns has been in the Middle East to help negotiate hostage releases. Al Jazeera is reporting Qatar's emir is in Egypt as part of those negotiations today. Thursday marked an International Day of Solidarity for Gaza, demanding a ceasefire, dubbed the global shutdown for Palestine. Hundreds of thousands rallied around the globe, from Brazil to Canada, the Netherlands, Spain, to the United Kingdom to the U.S.
Biden, Biden, you can't hide! You support genocide! You support genocide!
School staged walkouts from New York to California. Missouri Progressive Democrat Cori Bush joined veterans on Capitol Hill to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. Scott Baba reports.
We don't want 4 hours. We don't want 16 hours. We don't want 22. We want a ceasefire now.
Democratic Representative Cori Bush was joined by members of About Face, an organization representing veterans who are against war. Veteran and former Army Captain Brittany Ramos de Barros said that lawmakers were failing to respect the opinions of veterans, even as they prepared to honor them over the Veterans Day weekend.
This weekend, politicians will be shaking our hands and thanking us for our service, all while continuing to fail us. They continue to ignore the will of the American people who want a ceasefire.
Last month, Bush led a coalition of progressive representatives to call on President Joe Biden to work towards an immediate ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. With Jordan Sandoval, I'm Scott Baba.
A bipartisan letter from 16 Congress members is calling on the Biden administration to release WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange and drop the extradition request and espionage charges against him over his publishing of classified U.S. government documents, including some that show potential war crimes during the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. The letter cites press freedoms in the U.S. and was led by Democrat Jim McGovern of Massachusetts and Republican Thomas Massie of Kentucky. It says, quote, deep concerns about this case have been repeatedly expressed by international media outlets, human rights, and press freedom advocates, unquote. A federal judge in Florida today rejected former President Donald Trump's request to postpone his classified documents criminal trial. U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon pushed back several pretrial deadlines in a ruling, but left the May 2024 trial date intact. Trump faces 4 criminal cases unfolding in different cities as he seeks to reclaim the White House next year. The case in Florida includes dozens of felony charges, accusing the Republican ex-president of illegally retaining classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago estate and hiding them from government investigators. Trump denies wrongdoing. In California, some 30,000 people, including 50 heads of Asian Pacific nations and upwards of 1,200 corporate CEOs, are anticipated to converge for the APEC, Asia Pacific Economic Forum Summit, that kicks off next week in San Francisco. Events have already begun. Climate activists are bringing attention their call for governments to do more to curb climate change. They rallied Thursday. Jordan Del Fuego reports.
IPEC is for corporate profit.
Will Wiltschko, coordinator of Bay Climate Action.
We're demanding that world leaders work to end climate pollution, globalize climate justice, and stop trade attacks on climate action. A lot of folks involved in this movement are angry, especially the youth. We are very angry at the fact that world leaders are not taking real action on climate change, and instead they're paying lip service to it.
I'm Jordan Del Hugo.
Jill Stein says she will run for president in 2024 under the Green Party ticket. She ran for Green Party president in 2020. Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, who's championed new oil and gas projects in the U.S. and thwarted parts of President Joe Biden's Build Back Better agenda, says he will not seek re-election in 2024. The decision puts Democrats' narrow control of the Senate in limbo and gives Republicans a prime chance to pick up a seat in the heavily red state. For the last few years, Manchin has been the only Democrat elected to statewide office in West Virginia. A federal judge upheld the Biden administration's approval of the Willow oil drilling project on Alaska's remote North Slope. The project drew the ire of environmentalists who accused the president of backpedaling on his pledge to combat climate change. Grassroots and Upayat Group and environmentalists raised concerns about planet-warming greenhouse gas emissions from the project and argued federal agencies failed to consider how increased emissions could affect ice-reliant species like polar bears and have impacts on indigenous subsistence communities. Environmental and tribal groups had vowed to appeal the ruling. I'm Christina Onnested, reporting for Pacifica Radio.